In testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee, you said that you would only fire Special Counsel Mueller for good cause, and that you had not seen any yet. Several months have passed since then. Have you seen good cause to fire Special Counsel Mueller?
No.
Thank you. If you were ordered today to fire Mr. Mueller, what would you do?
As I've explained previously, I would follow the regulation. If there were good cause, I would act. If there were no good cause, I would not.
That's Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. He obviously the top guy over the Justice Department, talking about the Russia probe since Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused himself. Now, you just heard his feelings about Bob Mueller during a hearing at the House Judicial Committee earlier today. Rosenstein, he was also asked about Peter Strzok. He, the FBI agent dismissed from the case this past July after it was discovered he was texting negative things about Trump with another agent. He called Trump, among other things, an idiot. He also texted, "I do so hope his disorganization comes to bite him hard in November." And on election day, when he thought Trump might win, he texted, "OMG, this is terrifying." Now here's more from the hearing.
The Department of Justice investigations must not be tainted by individuals imposing their own political prejudices.
My question to you is, how with a straight face can you say that this group of Democrat partisans are unbiased and will give President Trump a fair shake?
I've discussed this with Director Mueller, and he and I collectively have a lot of experience managing offices in the Department of Justice. We recognize we have employees with political opinions, and it's our responsibility to make sure those opinions do not influence their actions. Pardon me. And so I believe that Director Mueller understands that, and that he is running that office appropriately.
Let's bring in our legal panel right now to help hash this out. Jimmy Kasuris, a criminal defense attorney in Manhattan, sits on the board of directors at the New York City Criminal Bar Association, also frequently lecturing at New York Law School and the bar associations in Queens in New York. Also, Mimi Rocco, who now is a professor at Pace Law, a former federal prosecutor herself. Richard Brodsky, an attorney, former Democratic New York Assemblyman, and also a professor at NYU. All right. Mimi, explain where the line is. First, what an agent can or can't say on their private time, let alone when they're on the clock, and how can that or can't that disqualify them from the course of an investigation?
Well, an agent or a prosecutor, for that matter, can't engage in political activities while they're working or using their, their work phones and computers. I actually don't know the answer to whether or not they were using their work phones in this case. I don't know. So that would make a difference in terms of whether this was prohibited behavior. But the attacks that are going on here against the FBI agents and, frankly, against the prosecutors, when today at the hearing, when they were listing off, the political contributions that the various prosecutors had made, I mean, that is permissive. You are allowed to make political contributions on your own time with your own money, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the idea that that kind of activity should somehow disqualify a prosecutor or an agent from working on certain investigations, I think is a very slippery and dangerous slope.
So just so the audience is clear, when you join the U.S. Prosecutor's Office or the Federal Bureau of Investigations, you don't cease your rights as a citizen.
Absolutely
it just can't
not
impact your work. But then the question, Richard, becomes what is opinion on your own and when does it cloud your performance? This guy was terminated by Mueller,
right,
okay? So my question is, can you say the president's an idiot and then say that doesn't impact my performance?
There may be a legal standard here, as you've just heard, with respect to what's permissible or illegal activity. That's not the standard that ought to be applied here. What would you say if Hillary Clinton was being investigated by someone who said the Clintons are thieves? You don't have a constitutional First Amendment right to investigate, to work on a particular case. So whatever his rights are as an employee, the decision to remove him from being part of the investigative team was the correct decision, and it's not acceptable behavior.
Jimmy, you've been on both sides of this as working at a DA's office and obviously as a criminal defense attorney. When you're defending a client, do you ever try and find out if there's bias against your client or your client's organization on the part of the prosecutors?
Sure. There are some instances where I've represented individuals who, you know, mostly in street crimes, they have relationships with some of the officers, detectives, there's words been exchanged between them. And if there's something there, we will try to investigate it and make something of it at a trial. But, I mean, I just think this is all noise. I really do. Nobody can say that Mueller is not doing his job. Nobody can say that he is tainted in any way. I think that he did, I suppose, make the right decision, but more for optical purposes and to make sure that everything is fair. People have a right to express their opinions regardless of where they work. I know prosecutors, defense attorneys, we express our opinions about defendants, about prosecutors, about defense attorneys, about agents, about a case, about the evidence.
About someone you're investigating? And you say he's an idiot, or that the country's in danger, and then you're going to go and investigate him for...
I'm not saying that that doesn't look
Yikes.
bad, but you want to know something? Do you really think that this investigative team or any other investigative team, Mimi, you with the U.S. Attorney's Office, you have agents investigating something bad, you know, a group or something, they're not going to talk amongst themselves and make comments? I mean, there might be people on his team going, you know, this is all for nothing, or why are we doing this, or why are we wasting our time? They express their opinions.
Can I jump in for a second? I mean, I think the answer to the question of, you know, how can you expect someone to fairly investigate a target when they've called him an idiot, or, for example, is that these are professionals. I mean, I think Mueller went out and he got a team of people who have been lifelong career prosecutors. This is their job. I do think that we should and could have faith in them, that they can put their personal beliefs aside to follow the evidence. And prosecutors like to make cases. They don't care who the case is against, meaning they don't care whether they're a Democrat or Republican. You know, when I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, we made cases against both Democrats and Republicans. It didn't matter who the U.S. attorney was appointed by. But just to be clear to the audience,
if Mueller had said this comment, okay, and it was, you know, that he had texted to somebody, that's a different case, right?
But that's not what we're talking about.
I know it's not. But what I'm trying to make my point is, how many agents, for example, would work on a case the size of the Russia investigation? Hundreds, I would assume, right? Let alone the 16, 17 prosecutors that are already taking different facets of it. I don't think there's anywhere in a country where you can get 200 people that are going to agree on everything. What I'm trying to get at is, in terms of a legitimacy of a case, they were labeling today when they went back and forth. Some people gave $30,000 to Republican campaigns over the course of their careers. I guess the public just wants to know, maybe what's the standard we should apply here, more than just generally, one second, Richard, more than just generally, they're professionals.
This is ahistoric. The FBI was run by a man named J. Edgar Hoover, who let his personal biases and opinions affect his investigations for 30 years. I mean, let's have, I love prosecutors, don't get me wrong, but let's have some historic appreciation of the enormous power they have and the potential for, and the history of, abuse of that power.
Okay, so take it to the next step. It doesn't look good, everybody agrees. Mueller made the right call, I think, that nobody's debating. He cut the guy loose in July. What more should have been done, and does it disqualify him?
I didn't say anything more should have been done.
Mimi, did you not bring cases even though you thought somebody was terrible? Of course not. If you didn't have the evidence and it didn't arise to an indictable offense, as much as you, your agents, everybody looking at it might have thought the guy was horrible and incorrigible.
Right. It's not about your personal opinions. And I think to answer the question you asked, you can have your personal beliefs. It can't infect the work that you do. You can't allow that to control the decisions you make as a prosecutor. And in my experience, prosecutors and agents are able to separate those two things. If we start having a litmus test, for example, Secret Service agents, they guard the president. Do we ask them whether they like the president, whether they agree, whether they think he should have won? No, we're not going to go down that road in America. And I think this idea, it's
been further complicated with social media because somebody now opines, and now there's a digital record of it. And if an agent did say, God is the president, he'd immediately be removed from the detail. But before I run out of time, the discussion today just wasn't on the fitness of Mueller and team to do the investigation. It's the second step, which is, do we need a parallel counsel appointed here? I would assume you can't, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, right? And this is only going to lead to trouble.
To do
Well, and right. I mean, the council can only investigate if there's a crime, can be appointed if there's a crime. And there's no, I mean, even if you assume that the agent used bad judgment, or you don't think that he, the Mueller team is composed of, the right balance of people, there's no allegation that there was a crime committed here by the FBI agent that was removed.
Well, that's not the way they want the special prosecutor. They want the special prosecutor to look at the Clinton stuff. And there are allegations that there were crimes that went unpunished. Now,
there's an IG investigation for that. The FBI is investigating how that was handled, and that's
they want somebody to be looking over who they have investigating, because they don't like who's investigating. That's what they want. So they want somebody to look over the person who's looking over it.
They liked him until he started getting close to Trump, and now all of a sudden they don't like him.
Do you ever run into anything like this in Albany?
Well, you had investigative bodies like the various inspector generals and the Moreland commissions, which were complete creatures of less than neutral investigative, how do I say this?
I get you.
Survive.
Yes. I know where you're going.
So the notion that there are prosecutors in there and they'll be independent, God bless you. God bless you. No, that's not the standard for people who can indict.
But to be clear,
other people.
You're saying there's not a better alternative than what we've got going right now.
I think Mueller's doing fine. I think Mueller's not the issue, and I think Mueller acted appropriately when he did what he did. But the notion was, the prosecutors, we separate our opinions from our actions.
But
is
what's
a little
the
ahistorical.
alternative? You're going to ask them their opinions before they get assigned to a case?
No. When someone volunteers and steps into the spotlight and says what they said, and it becomes public, got to be held accountable.
Well, not accountable. You can be discharged, but the notion that expressing your opinion somehow precipitates accountability, I mean, the guy lost his job, and I understand that, but the notion that...
If the guy had said, I hate Protestants, or I hate black people, would that have been grounds for disqualification? That's his opinion.
If the guy said, I don't think... What if the guy said, I think Trump's an idiot, but I think this investigation is nonsense? What do you do with that? What do you do with that?
I don't know, because that's not what happened.
No, but,
he only said half of it.
But that's why we need to accept that everybody has an opinion, and we have to assume what we know has gone on for the vast majority of times. They separate them.
I am shocked. It never ceases to amaze me that the people you would think that would know the most not to go on social media and opine about these things are the people
come to
that
my
do
office
it the
and listen to
worst.
wiretaps.
My
So
God, in your legal profession, don't you guys know?
He was texting private. I mean, again.
So what? Elliot Spitzer.
You can't text with your girlfriend, spouse.
Talk when you can nod. Don't nod when you can wink. Don't wink when you can smile. I mean,
there is a judgment issue. I agree, but I mean, I do think it would be a slightly different conversation if he was posting it on Facebook, but he wasn't. He was texting it privately. And remember, the attacks that are going on here, what we saw today, a lot of time was spent on the political contributions by the prosecutor
today. I'm just wondering though where the line starts and stops. All right, coming up next, some of President Trump's picks here for federal judgeships are so controversial, even unqualified. You have Republicans, including the head of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, saying, give me somebody else. We're going to take a look at the history and how important it is to get these picks right. I know everybody focuses on Supreme Court appointments. These are federal judgeships. We're going to talk about that straight ahead.